The crimson glow of the Vortex Nebula painted everything in shades of blood and rust, as Zane Thorne guided his salvage ship through the treacherous cosmic storms. Lightning arched between gas clouds the size of planets, and somewhere in this stellar graveyard lay the prize he'd been hunting for weeks, the research station Meridian 7. Zane's weathered hands gripped the controls of the Wanderer, a ship that had seen better decades, but still flew true. At 32, he bore the kind of scars that came from living on the galaxy's edge, a jagged line across his left temple from a pirate's blade, calloused palms from years of salvage work, and eyes the color of deep space that had seen too much loss. His dark hair was perpetually tousled, and stubble shadowed his angular jaw, the look of a man who'd stopped caring about appearances. Long ago, there you are, beautiful, he murmured as Meridian 7 materialized through the nebulas. Swirling veils, the station hung motionless against the cosmic backdrop, its sleek white hull marred by scorch marks and debris impacts. Solar collectors spread like broken wings, and the central hub rotated slowly, still maintaining artificial gravity after all these months adrift. Whatever had happened here, it had been sudden and violent. Zane docked at the station's secondary airlock, his magnetic boots echoing through empty corridors as he made his way inside. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows, and the air recyclers hummed with an undertone that suggested failing systems. He'd seen dozens of abandoned stations, but something about this one felt different, electric, alive in a way that made his skin prickle. His scanner led him deeper into the facility, past laboratories filled with strange crystalline formations and observation decks that offered spectacular views of the nebula's heart. The readings grew stronger as he approached what the station schematics labeled as Experimental Wing Alpha. The corridor ended at a massive reinforced door marked with warnings in a dozen languages. Zane's lockpick made quick work of the electronic seals, and the door slid open with a pneumatic hiss that seemed to release something more than air, a feeling of barely contained power that made his teeth ache. The chamber beyond stole his breath. At its center stood a cylindrical containment field, crackling with energy that shifted through impossible colors, and suspended within that field, as beautiful and alien as a star-given form, was her. She appeared humanoid but clearly wasn't human. Her skin held an opalescent quality that seemed to contain tiny galaxies, shifting from pale silver to deep blue as he watched. Long hair flowed around her like liquid starlight, and even unconscious, she radiated a presence that made the air itself seem to sing. She was perhaps 25 in human years, with delicate features that belonged in classical sculptures. Yet there was something wild about her, something that spoke of cosmic storms and stellar fires. Zane found himself moving closer, drawn by an inexplicable pull. The containment field sparked more violently as he approached, and he noticed the control panel nearby flashing with critical warnings. The field was failing, had been failing for months. Whatever this woman was, she was dying in there. Damn it, he whispered, studying the alien technology. He was a pilot and salvager, not a scientist, but years of jury-rigging broken systems had taught him to recognize patterns. The containment field wasn't just holding her, it was draining her, feeding off her somehow. His hand hovered over what looked like an emergency release. Every instinct told him to walk away, to take what salvage he could and run. Getting involved with alien experiments never ended well. But as he watched her features contort in what was clearly pain, even in unconsciousness, he found his fingers moving to the controls. "Hope you're one of the good ones," he muttered, and triggered the release. The containment field collapsed with a sound like breaking crystal. The woman dropped toward the floor, and Zane lunged forward, catching her in his arms. She was surprisingly light, her skin warm to the touch and literally glowing with soft bioluminescence. Her eyes fluttered open, violet orbs shot through with silver that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. She stared up at him with a mixture of confusion and wonder, lips parting as if to speak. When she did, her voice was like music, speaking words in a language he'd never heard but somehow understood. "Who are you?" "Zane," he said simply. "And you're safe now." She struggled to sit up, and he helped her, noting how the glow beneath her skin pulsed stronger with emotion. "I am Naya," she said, her accent melodic and strange. How long was I contained? Based on the station logs, about 8 months. Zane glanced around the chamber, noting the other empty containment cells. What were they doing to you? Pain flickered across her features, studying me, trying to understand my people's connection to stellar energy. She held up her hand, and small sparks of actual starlight danced between her fingers. They thought they could weaponize it. A distant rumble echoed through the station engines. Big ones. We need to go, Zane said, helping her to her feet. Someone else found this place. Naya nodded, though she swayed slightly. The months of containment had clearly weakened her. I can sense them, she said, her eyes briefly flaring brighter. Corporate soldiers. They hunt my kind. Well, they're about to have a very bad day, Zane replied grimly, slipping his arm around her waist to support her. Think you can make it to my ship? She looked up at him, and for a moment, something passed between them, a connection that went deeper than words. With you, yes. As they made their way through the station's corridors, Naya's presence seemed to awaken something in the very walls. Lights that had been dim for months flared to life at her passing, and the air itself seemed cleaner, charged with possibility. Behind them, the sound of docking clamps and cutting torches echoed through the station. Zane's ship was their sanctuary, but as they reached the airlock, he realized his life had just become infinitely more complicated. He was now harboring what appeared to be an energy being with enough power to light up a dead station, being hunted by corporate forces he couldn't hope to fight. But as Naya squeezed his hand in gratitude, her touch warm and electric against his skin, Zane found he didn't care about the complications. For the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The Wanderer detached from Meridian 7 just as the corporate ship rounded the station's bulk, and they disappeared into the nebula's embrace. Two souls beginning a journey that would change them both forever. The Wanderer shuddered as another pulse blast scorched past its hull, the ship's aging shields flaring dangerously bright against the star-scattered void. Naya pressed herself against the bulkhead of the cramped medical bay, her skin flickering. Between silver and deep azure as emotions she couldn't quite control rippled through her being. Hold on, Zane's voice crackled over the intercom from the cockpit. These corporate hawks are persistent, but they're not pilots. Through the small porthole, Naya watched their pursuers, 3 sleek interceptors bearing the crimson logo of Nexus Corporation. They'd been hunting her people for decades, capturing them for experimentation, trying to unlock the secrets of stellar manipulation. She closed her eyes and felt the familiar pull of cosmic energy flowing through the nearby asteroid field, each rock containing trace minerals that sang to her genetic heritage. The ship lurched again, and this time sparks flew from an overloaded conduit near her head. Without thinking, Naya reached out, her palm glowing with soft luminescence. The damaged circuits responded to her touch, electricity flowing back into proper channels as if guided by her will. Naya, Zane appeared in the doorway, having put the ship on autopilot. Sweat beaded his forehead, and his dark eyes held a mixture of concern and something else, wonder. Did you just fix my power relay? She pulled her hand back, self-conscious about her abilities. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. He moved closer, and she caught the scent of engine oil and that uniquely human warmth that made her feel safe. That relay's been giving me trouble for months. How did you do that? Before she could answer, the ship shook violently. Through the porthole, one of the interceptors was closing fast, its weapons charging for what would likely be a killing blow. Naya felt fear spike through her, not for herself, but for Zane. This gentle salvager who'd risked everything to free her didn't deserve to die because of her presence. They want me alive, she said suddenly. If I surrender, not happening. Zane's voice was firm, but his hand was gentle as it cupped her face. We're in this together now. The touch sent warmth cascading through her, and with it came something unexpected, a sharing. For just a moment, she felt what he felt, determination, protectiveness, and underneath it all, a loneliness that matched her own. The connection was broken when another blast rocked the ship, but the memory of it lingered. I might be able to help, she said softly, but I need to touch the ship's power core. Zane studied her face. Is it dangerous? Everything I do is dangerous. Her skin pulsed with nervous energy. "My people, we're connected to stellar forces. Sometimes I can't control it, but you want to try," she nodded. And he led her through the ship's narrow corridors to the engine room. The power core hummed. Behind protective shielding, a fusion reactor that converted matter to energy in a carefully controlled dance. To Naya, it felt like a distant cousin artificial starfire that called to something deep in her DNA. "If this goes wrong," she warned, "the ship could overload. And if we don't try, we're dead anyway." Zane began shutting down safety protocols. "I trust you." Those 3 words hit her harder than any weapon blast. When had anyone ever trusted her? The scientists on Meridian 7 had seen her as a specimen. Her own people had exiled her because her powers were too unstable, too dangerous. But this human male, who barely knew her, was willing to risk his life on her word. She placed her hands on the core housing, feeling the fusion reaction respond to her presence. Energy flowed between them, stellar fire meeting artificial flame. The ship's systems began to sing with power beyond their design specifications. Lights brightened throughout the Wanderer, and Naya felt the engines surge with new strength. "Holy stars," Zane breathed, watching the readings spike across his instruments. "We've got 3 times normal power output." Through their shared connection to the ship, Naya felt Zane's amazement and excitement, but she also felt something else: the interceptors falling behind. As the Wanderer accelerated beyond anything its pursuers had expected, "It won't last long," she warned, though the feeling of power flowing through her was intoxicating. "And when it's over, I'll be exhausted," Zane finished, moving to stand beside her. "I can feel it through the ship's systems somehow. We're connected." She looked up at him, her violet eyes wide with surprise. "You can sense the link. Ever since you touched the power core, it's like I can feel your emotions." His hand covered hers on the console. "The loneliness, the fear of being different. I know those feelings." The intimacy of the moment was broken by proximity alarms. They'd reached the Kralik asteroid field, a maze of spinning rocks and gravitational anomalies that would provide perfect cover. But threading through it would require pilot skills beyond what the ship's enhanced power could provide. "Can you maintain the boost while I navigate?" Zane asked. Naya nodded, though she could already feel the strain building. Channeling this much energy was like trying to hold a star in her bare hands. But as they entered the asteroid field, she felt Zane's confidence and skill through their connection, and it steadied her. The next 20 minutes were a dance of trust and precision. Zane flew the ship through gaps barely wider than its hull, while Naya poured power into the engines and shields. The interceptors, lacking both enhanced performance and a pilot of Zane's caliber, were forced to break off pursuit after the second ship clipped an asteroid and spun out of control. When they finally reached the field's far side, Naya collapsed against the power core housing, her skin flickering weakly between pale silver and exhausted blue. The energy boost faded, leaving the ship running on normal power but safely beyond their pursuers' reach. "Hey." Zane's arms came around her, supporting her weight. "You did amazing." She leaned into his warmth, feeling the echo of their shared connection. "I've never linked with anyone before," she admitted. "My people. They feared what I might do to them." "What do you mean?" Naya was quiet for a long moment, gathering courage. "Sometimes when I'm emotional, my power reaches out. It can burn, or worse. I've hurt people without meaning to." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "That's why I was alone when Nexus found me, instead of pulling away." Zane's arms tightened around her. "I felt your power, Naya, but I also felt your heart. You're not dangerous, you're just trying to protect everyone else from getting hurt." Tears, glowing faintly with bioluminescence, traced down her cheeks. "How can you be so sure?" "Because," he said softly, tilting her chin up to meet his gaze, "I recognize the look of someone who's been carrying guilt that isn't theirs to carry." In that moment, something shifted between them. The connection they'd forged through the ship's systems had become something deeper, more personal. Naya saw the pain in Zane's eyes, old wounds from his military service, the weight of decisions that had cost lives, the burden of surviving when others hadn't. "You understand," she breathed. "More than you know." His thumb brushed away her luminous tears. "But we don't have to carry it alone anymore." The ship's proximity sensors chimed softly. They were approaching the edge of civilized space, where corporate law held less sway. Soon they'd need to make decisions about where to go, what to do next. But for now, in the quiet sanctuary of the engine room, two damaged souls found comfort in shared understanding. Naya's skin settled into a warm, steady glow as she relaxed for the first time in months. Through their lingering connection, she felt Zane's pulse sync with hers, their hearts beating in rhythm despite belonging to different species. "What happens now?" she asked. Zane was quiet for a moment, studying her face in the gentle light of her bioluminescence. "Now we find somewhere safe, somewhere you can learn to control your power without fear. And after that," he smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. "After that, we see where this connection takes us." As the Wanderer sailed toward the outer rim, neither Zane nor Naya noticed the small tracking beacon that had attached itself to their hull. During the chase, their pursuers might have lost this battle, but the war for Naya's freedom was far from over. For now, though, they had each other, and sometimes that was enough to light the way through the darkness between stars. The hidden moon of the Sara Prime hung like a jewel against the backdrop of the outer rim, its surface covered in lush forests and crystal-clear lakes that reflected the binary stars overhead. From orbit, it looked uninhabited, exactly what the colonists who called it home intended. Zane's hands were steady on the controls as he guided the Wanderer through the sensor masking field that protected the settlement, but Naya could feel his tension through the connection they'd shared since the asteroid field. "You're nervous," she observed, studying his profile as they descended toward a landing pad hidden beneath the canopy. "It's complicated," Zane replied, his jaw tight. "Kira and I, we have history." Before Naya could ask what kind of history, their calm system crackled to life. The voice that emerged was distinctly feminine, warm but with an edge of authority that spoke of command experience. "Zane Thorn, you magnificent bastard. I should have known you'd come crawling back eventually." Despite his obvious discomfort, Zane smiled. "Hello, Kira. Permission to land, granted. Bay 7, and Zane?" The voice softened slightly. "It's good to hear from you." As they settled onto the landing pad, Naya watched a figure emerge from the nearby administrative building. Kira Voss was striking in a way that made Naya's chest tighten with an unfamiliar emotion. She was tall and athletic, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid and green eyes that missed nothing. Her clothes were simple work pants and a fitted jacket, but she wore them with the confidence of someone accustomed to being in charge. "Stay close," Zane murmured to Naya as they disembarked. "Some of these colonists don't trust outsiders." But Naya's attention was fixed on Kira, who was approaching with a smile that lit up her entire face. The human woman moved with fluid grace, and when she threw her arms around Zane in an embrace that lasted several seconds too long, Naya felt something hot and sharp twist in her stomach. 3 years, Kira said, pulling back to study Zane's face. 3 years of radio silence, and then you show up with. Her gaze shifted to Naya, and her expression changed. "Stars above. What is she?" Naya's skin flickered with defensive energy, pale silver shifting toward warning gold. "I am Naya of the Stellar Touched," she said formally. "And I am not a what?" Kira's eyebrows rose, but her expression shifted to one of professional interest rather than fear. "Forgive me. We don't see many non-humans out here. I'm Kira Voss, administrator of New Haven Colony." She extended her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Naya shook it. "Naya's in trouble," Zane said without preamble. "Nexus Corporation is hunting her. We need sanctuary while we figure out our next move." Kira's demeanor immediately became businesslike. "How much trouble?" "Because if you've brought corporate attention to my people, the kind of trouble that comes with experimental weapons programs and alien biology," Zane interrupted. "She's not dangerous, Kira. She's a refugee. I'll be the judge of that." Kira gestured toward the administrative building. "Come on, we'll discuss this in my office." As they walked through the colony, Naya marveled at what the humans had built. New Haven was a marvel of sustainable engineering, with buildings that seemed to grow from the forest floor and power systems that drew energy from the moon's geothermal vents. Children played in gardens while their parents tended to crops and workshops. It was beautiful. Peaceful. Everything. The sterile research station, where she'd been imprisoned, was not impressive. She said softly. Kira designed most of it, Zane replied. And there was obvious pride in his voice. She's brilliant. Engineering, biology, leadership. There's nothing she can't do when she sets her mind to it. The praise made Naya's earlier discomfort sharpen into something she finally recognized: jealousy. She'd never experienced the emotion before, but the way Zane spoke about Kira, the easy familiarity between them, made it clear their history was romantic. Kira's office occupied the top floor of the administrative building, with windows that offered a spectacular view of the colony and surrounding forest. The space was functional but personal, filled with botanical specimens, engineering, schematics, and holos of colonists at various celebrations. So, Kira said, settling behind her desk while Zane and Naya took seats across from her. Start from the beginning. What exactly did Nexus want with you? Naya explained about the research station, her people's connection to stellar energy, and the experiments that had been performed on her. As she spoke, she demonstrated her abilities on a small scale, making lights flicker, causing a dead plant on Kira's windowsill to bloom with bioluminescent flowers. Remarkable. Kira breathed, leaning forward with scientific fascination. Your cellular structure must be completely different from baseline humanoid. How do you process the energy? Where do you store it? I don't store it, Naya replied. I channel it. It flows through me like breathing. But the potential applications. Kira's eyes were bright with possibility. Clean energy, terraforming, medical applications. No wonder Nexus wanted to study you. Something cold settled in Naya's stomach. You sound like them. Kira flushed. I'm sorry. Scientific curiosity. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. She glanced at Zane. How long have you been traveling together? A few days, Zane said. But it feels longer. There was something in his voice when he said it, a warmth that made Kira's expression tighten almost imperceptibly. Naya caught the micro-expression and felt a surge of satisfaction that immediately made her ashamed of herself. Well, Kira said briskly, you're welcome to stay as long as you need. We have guest quarters in Sector C. I'll have someone show you. Actually, Zane interrupted. I was hoping we could talk privately first. Before. Kira's composure wavered for just a moment. Of course, Naya, would you mind? There's a lovely garden on the 3rd level if you'd like to explore. Naya wanted to protest, wanted to stay and hear whatever conversation Zane felt was so important. But she also recognized the dismissal for what it was. I'll find my way, she said stiffly. Rising from her chair. As she left the office, she heard the beginning of their conversation. Kira's voice, hurt and angry. 3 years, Zane. 3 years without a word. The garden was indeed beautiful. A carefully cultivated space filled with plants from a dozen different worlds. Naya found a bench near a fountain and sat down, trying to process the tangle of emotions churning through her. The jealousy was still there, sharp and uncomfortable. But underneath it was something worse. The fear that she was losing Zane before she'd even had him. You're the one he rescued. Naya turned to find a young man approaching perhaps 20, with the kind of easy smile that suggested he'd never met a stranger. His clothes marked him as a colonist, but there was something about his bearing that suggested military training. On decks, he said, settling onto the bench beside her. Kira's my sister. Half-sister, Naya corrected automatically, then wondered how she knew that. Dex's smile widened. Good ears. Yeah, half-sister, same father, different mothers. She practically raised me after Dad died. He studied Naya with curious eyes. So you're the reason Zane finally came home. Home. He lived here for almost 2 years. Him and Kira were, well, everyone thought they'd get married eventually. Dex's expression grew more serious. Then the military came calling. Some crisis. In the inner systems, Zane left with them, and we never saw him again. The revelation hit Naya like a physical blow. Zane had lived here, built a life with Kira, and he'd abandoned it for military service. Why are you telling me this? Because Kira's been waiting for him to come back for 3 years, and you need to know what you're walking into. Dex's voice was gentle but firm. She's a good person, My sister, the best. And she's been in love with Zane Thorne since the day they met. Before Naya could respond, her enhanced hearing caught the sound of raised voices from Kira's office. Through the building's walls, she could make out fragments of conversation. Duty to the Alliance, duty to me. To us couldn't. Stay, not after what happened. Could have talked to me every night. Wondering if you were dead. The pain in both their voices was palpable. And Naya felt her power respond to the emotional turmoil. The fountain beside her began to glow, its water taking on a soft luminescence that matched her skin. "Oh, Dex," breathed. "That's incredible. I'm sorry." Naya tried to rein in her abilities, but they seemed tied to her emotional state. "When I'm upset, sometimes, hey, no judgment here. Half the colonists have some kind of genetic modification or unusual ability. That's why we're all out here on the rim." Dex's tone was reassuring. "But maybe you should go check on them. That argument's been brewing for 3 years. Naya made her way back to the administrative building. Following the sound of voices to Kira's office, the door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, she could see Zane and Kira facing each other. Across the desk, "I loved you," Kira was saying, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I still love you, but you made your choice when you left. I made the only choice I could." Zane replied, "After Cygnus X1, after what happened to my squad, I couldn't stay here and pretend to be normal. I couldn't risk bringing that darkness into your life. That should have been my decision to make. And now," Zane's voice was barely audible, "what if I said I was sorry? What if I said I never stopped thinking about you?" There was a long moment of silence, and Naya held her breath, waiting for. The attack came at dawn, when the twin suns of the Sara Prime painted the colony in shades of gold and amber. Naya woke to the sound of explosions echoing across the forest canopy, her enhanced senses immediately picking up the acrid smell of burning vegetation and the distinctive ozone scent of plasma weapons. Through her window in the guest quarters, she could see corporate shuttles descending like mechanical vultures, their black hulls bearing the crimson insignia of Nexus Corporation. She dressed quickly, her skin already shifting to defensive patterned silver, streaked with warning gold as adrenaline flooded her system. The connection she shared with Zane, dormant during sleep, flared to life as he awakened in his own quarters to buildings away. Through their bond, she felt his instant alertness, the combat reflexes that never truly slept. "Stay hidden," his mental voice whispered across their link. "I'm coming for you." But Naya was already moving, slipping out of her quarters and into the chaos erupting throughout New Haven. Colonists ran through the streets, some heading for shelters while others grabbed weapons to defend their home. Through it all, she caught glimpses of black armored figures advancing methodically through the colony, their movements precise and professional. "Naya," Kira's voice cut through the noise. The colony administrator appeared around a corner, her auburn hair disheveled and a pulse rifle in her hands. "Thank the stars you're safe. We need to get you to the emergency bunker." "Where's Zane?" Naya demanded, even as she felt him moving through the colony toward them. Coordinating the defense with Dex, Kira grabbed Naya's arm, trying to guide her towards safety. "These aren't random raiders, they're too organized, too well-equipped. Someone told them exactly where to find you." Before Naya could respond, a new voice cut through the morning air, amplified by speakers mounted on the lead shuttle. "Citizens of New Haven, this is Marcus Vale of Nexus Security Division. We are here for one individual only, the alien female, known as Naya. Surrender her peacefully, and no harm will come to your colony." The voice sent ice through Naya's veins. She knew that name, had heard it spoken in hushed tones by the scientists on Meridian 7. Marcus Vale was Nexus Corporation's top enforcer, a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency was matched only by his complete lack of conscience. "We need to move," Kira said urgently. "The bunker has shielding that will hide your energy signature." "No." Naya pulled free from Kira's grasp, her skin brightening with resolve. "I won't let innocent people die because of me. Don't be stupid. If they capture you, they'll stop attacking the colony." Naya's voice was firm. "It's me they want." Through her bond with Zane, she felt his violent disagreement with her decision. His mental voice was sharp with panic. "Don't even think about it. We'll find another way." But before either of them could act on their intentions, the choice was taken from them. A figure in black armor rounded the corner, moving with predatory grace. Unlike the other corporate soldiers, this one carried himself with an authority that spoke of command, and when he removed his helmet, Naya found herself face to face with Marcus Vale himself. He was handsome in a cold, classical way, sharp cheekbones, steel gray eyes, and silver-touched hair that spoke of genetic modifications for longevity. He appeared to be in his 30s, but Naya suspected he was much older. Everything about him was precise, controlled, dangerous. "Ms. Naya," he said with a slight bow, as if they were meeting at a social function rather than in the middle of a combat zone. "Marcus Vale, I've been looking forward to meeting you." Kira raised her rifle, but Vale seemed unconcerned. "Administrator Voss, I presume you've built something remarkable here. It would be a shame to see it destroyed over a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding," Kira snarled, "is your assumption that we'll hand over a refugee to corporate butchers." Vale's smile was razor-thin. "Ah, but you see, she's not just any refugee. She's stolen Nexus property." His gaze shifted to Naya. "The energy matrix you carry was developed in our laboratories. Using our resources, legally speaking, you belong to us." "I belong to no one," Naya said, her skin flaring with indignant light. "A common misconception among our test subjects." Vale's tone remained conversational, but there was something predatory in his eyes, however, not unreasonable. "I'm prepared to offer a trade." "What kind of trade?" Kira demanded. Instead of answering, Vale activated a holographic projector on his wrist. The image that appeared made both women gasp. It was Zane, but not as they knew him. This was a younger man in Alliance military dress uniform, standing at attention beside other officers. The insignia on his collar identified him as Captain Samuel Reeves, Alliance Special Operations. "Your friend Zane hasn't been entirely honest with you," Vale said pleasantly. "His real name is Samuel Reeves, and he's a war criminal wanted by both the Alliance and Nexus Corporation for the theft of classified military assets." Naya felt the shock ripple through her bond with Zane, followed immediately by his approach. She could sense him getting closer, drawn by the confrontation, despite the danger. "You're lying," Kira said, but there was uncertainty in her voice. 3 years ago, Captain Reeves was assigned to escort a Nexus research vessel carrying prototypes of alien-human hybrid technologies. Instead of completing his mission, he murdered his entire squad and disappeared with sensitive data worth billions of credits. Vale's smile widened. "Imagine my surprise when we tracked stolen Nexus property to the same man we've been hunting for years." The accusation hit Naya like a physical blow. Through their connection, she felt Zane's anguish, his desperate desire to explain, to make her understand. But she also felt something else: guilt. Deep, crushing guilt that suggested Vale's words contained at least a grain of truth. "That's not," Kira began, but she was interrupted by Zane himself. "It's true." His voice was hollow as he stepped into view, hands raised to show he was unarmed. His face was a mask of pain and self-recrimination, most of it anyway. Zane. Naya started toward him, but Vale's soldiers immediately trained their weapons on her. "Hello, Sam," Vale said, his tone mock-friendly. "Or do you prefer Zane these days? I have to admit, the beard is a good look for you. Very mysterious drifter." "Let them go, Marcus." Zane's voice was steady, but Naya could feel the storm of emotions raging beneath the surface. "Your quarrel is with me." "Oh, but that's where you're wrong." Vale gestured to his soldiers who began to fan out in a wider circle. "My quarrel is with both of you. You see, after you stole that data and disappeared, Nexus had to start their hybrid research program from scratch. Ms. Naya here represents 3 years of lost time and billions in research costs. The data you stole," Kira said slowly, understanding dawning in her voice. "It was about her people, wasn't it?" Zane's silence was answer enough. "Stellar-touched biology, to be precise," Vale confirmed. "Nexus had captured several specimens for study, and Sam here was supposed to deliver the research data to our primary facility. Instead, he had an attack of conscience." Vale's expression turned mocking. "Tell them what really happened, Sam. Tell them about your squad. Naya felt Zane's pain spike through their bond. And suddenly she understood the guilt he carried, the nightmares he sometimes had. They weren't just about military failures. They were about a choice he'd made that had cost lives. They were my friends, Zane said quietly. My squad. We'd served together for years. But when I saw what Nexus was doing to those people, her people, I couldn't be part of it anymore. So you killed them, Vale said conversationally. I tried to convince them to help me free the prisoners, Zane continued, his voice barely audible. When they refused, when they said orders were orders, I made a choice. The admission hung in the air like a physical presence. Naya felt the weight of it through their bond, the moment when Zane had chosen compassion over duty, when he'd decided that some orders were too monstrous to follow, regardless of the cost. 6 good soldiers, Vale said, shaking his head in mock sadness. 6 families who never got to say goodbye, all for a handful of alien test subjects who died anyway, when our containment protocols failed. But the data survived, Kira said, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. That's how you knew so much about Naya's abilities, how you were able to help her control them. Zane nodded miserably. I studied everything I could, hoping to find some way to help if I ever encountered another stellar touched. You never thought you'd fall in love with one. Vale finished with amusement. How wonderfully poetic. The war criminal and the alien weapon, brought together by fate. She's not a weapon, Zane snarled, his composure finally cracking. Oh, but she is. Vale's expression grew serious. And now I'm going to offer you both a choice. Surrender voluntarily, and I'll spare this charming little colony. Resist, and I'll level every building, kill every man, woman, and child, and then take you anyway. Through her bond with Zane, Naya felt his despair, his certainty that there was no way out. But she also felt something else, his love for her, burning bright and pure despite everything they'd learned. And in that moment, she made her own choice. I'll come with you, she said, stepping forward. But only if you let Zane and the colonists go free. Naya, no. Zane lunged toward her. But Vale's soldiers were ready. I'm afraid that's not acceptable, Vale.